28th of January, number of the day is a big one. It's 50% and it's tariffs. And it's actually not, Francis Herd, a Trump tariff for a change.
No, it's a South African possible tariff. And this is on cars because we've seen an influx of cheap cars from China, some from India. So yesterday, there was a parliamentary meeting. The car makers were there, government was there, and this comes from Trade and Industry and Competition. Now, the 50% may be overblown because somebody from that department, from the Trade Administration Commission, said the World Trade Organization allows for 50%, and we're looking at bringing ours in line. So it may not be as bad as 50%, but he was saying we're looking somewhere in.
It's an option.
It's an option. They're looking between the current tariffs of 25%, and it can go up to 50%, according to the World Trade Organization.
Obvious question. Why?
Why? Because these cheaper models are, perhaps this is debatable, good for consumers. You have more choice in South Africa right now, but it's not good for manufacturers. And South Africa has spent a lot of time and effort and energy in bringing car manufacturers from all over the world to manufacture their cars here. So they are creating jobs. We've got plants in Roslyn in Pretoria. I spoke to the CEO of BMW today. So the thing is, they're saying the competition is unfair. And now it gets a little bit technical because trade rules don't allow for dumping. And as far as I know, that is when countries actually come and sell their goods in a different country at a lower price than the manufacturing price, right? So you make a car for $20, you come to South Africa and you dump it for 10 because you can't get rid of it otherwise.
You make some money out of it.
You make some money. So, and the BMW CEO wouldn't use that word in Parliament yesterday. They debated what's going on. The consensus is that Chinese cars have flooded the market. Maybe it's not dumping, but they certainly have an excess in China.
So
that's why.
Let's take a look at the numbers. From 2024, the numbers I found from the two countries, China and India. In 2024, cars from China made up 53% of total vehicle imports. And then India, Indian cars, 22%. So it's obviously taking a massive hit at our local manufacturers here. But there's two things that I wonder then. Why are our locally produced vehicles still so expensive that it is cheaper to bring cars in from China and India? I understand the argument, but I would still ask the question, maybe our locally produced vehicles are still out of range for the average South African. No sense of irony lost on me there.
That is a good question. I can't answer for them. But what I can say is you're right. Those Chinese cars are coming in cheaper, even though they've got a 25% tariff, right? But look at Chinese manufacturing. They don't concern themselves with copyright as much as we do. So a lot of the design was copied. I mean, Chinese manufacturers have been copying car designs quite blatantly. So they save costs there. The government in China has incentivized car makers and made it so financially attractive for them to make cars. Firstly, they wanted to build for their own market. And we've got to think about this. Why don't we have our own South African car producers? We've got the international ones building here, yes, but they wanted their own cars for their own market. And they made these car makers compete and they helped them and they flooded the Chinese market. And then there was just too much. And then they incentivized exports. So this is a problem around the world. Europe also looking at it. So you could just say they're doing things on the cheap, maybe more effectively. So some would argue the parts don't always fit, but it depends what you buy, right?
I suppose the argument you could look at as well is for the consumer, the end consumer on the whole thing here, that instead of hitting China and India car manufacturers with 50%, bring the cost of vehicles down, because in the end, the consumer, even if you hit them with a 50% tariff increase, if it were to go as high as that, it's still the end consumer that's now going to pay even more money for a car that isn't worth that amount of money, but the South African option is still too expensive. It doesn't actually help the consumer in the end.
Exactly. So I'd like to bring in the CEO of BMW, Peter von Binsbergen, because he's also the president of the industry body NAMSA. And I was talking to him this morning. He said, you don't want to do that because then you can, you're right, entry-level cars become more expensive.
Yes.
And you want young people to be able to get their first car, right? So he says the industry hasn't called for 50%. They do want some sort of protection because they really are concerned. And they're saying the competition is unfair. They want some sort of protection, but he said maybe that could be, the tariffs could be moderated by incentivizing Chinese manufacturers to come here and build here and create jobs, which we're slowly seeing. And I was interested, why does that benefit everybody? But he said, once you've got more car makers here, not just 4, 5, or 6, you've got all of them here, then you're getting parts, and the parts are being built here, and everything becomes cheaper for everybody. So it actually brings down the cost of cars manufactured in South Africa in general. So they don't want these cars just being imported, but being made here. And Chery, by the way, said it's going to take over Nissan's plant. So at least there is some activity there. So that is the idea, to bring down costs for everyone, but still, I think there may be some more protection against China. But of course, we have a political relationship
We do.
with China,
I was about to ask about this political relationship because I was under the impression we were on this intercontinental, inter-economical dating app called BRICS. But apparently we're not swiping. Do you swipe right or left? I can't remember anymore.
I think right.
But I don't know what it is. But I thought we were all buddies. And Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Why aren't we? Is this not benefiting us anymore? I'm a little confused.
Yeah. We are all buddies, but there has always been a concern about Chinese imports because China is just this huge machine. And another example of why they can produce things lower, sometimes because maybe the labor restrictions aren't as heavy as ours. Maybe they're even exploiting people. At times, it's been argued. So they have, whatever they're doing, they have the ability to make things at a much cheaper cost, and countries are entitled to protect their local industries. And this is a hard thing to do because government has got it wrong before, government has got it right. We brought down tariffs, then our textile industry was wiped out. But sometimes we don't bring down tariffs, and then the next thing, you can have Toyota, VW, who are our top car makers, and some of the others leaving South Africa because they can't. So you want to protect jobs, you want to protect industries, but it's a delicate balance. But we do put tariffs on Chinese. We don't have a free trade agreement with China. We can still be friends, but we are allowed to do things
We're going to protect our own interests, aren't we? Protectionism. It's what we all do. It's what we all seem to be doing. I don't think anyone can blame us or China.
Well, protectionism
or India.
is when it's too high.
Okay.
But right now, around the world, a lot of countries do put tariffs
Of course.
on. We were lucky because in the United States, there was a law specifically for African countries that protected us from protection in the US until last year.
Yes.
So the car makers, by the way, also facing that 25% Trump tariff that was introduced in April last year.
Just speaking of one or two little loopholes here, just the one, I think, before someone comments that we didn't talk about this issue, we're talking at this moment, this possible 50% tariff of assembled vehicles coming into the country. The loophole that I saw is car parts, that if they're coming in, they might be hit with a tariff, but a much lower tariff. The number I'm picking up here is vehicle components with duties adjusted between 10 and 12%. I'm not saying it's a loophole as in it's a good thing, but it does seem like a slightly different tariff there.
Yeah, so this morning I heard a caution against a loophole, which sounds to me like IKEA. You go and buy a bookshelf and then you just have to put like two parts together.
Yeah, DIY.
Yeah, and I can't remember the technical term. I'll look for it. But they're saying don't let because then you can skip those big import tariffs by bringing in almost assembled cars.
Right.
And then you just put them together.
You just leave the radio out and then just plug it in when you get here.
Okay, so they're not fully assembled. Now we throw that in. So they want, so industry players are saying, if Chinese manufacturers come here, they must do it properly and bring in all the different parts. We don't make enough parts either. Bring in all the different parts and build here in South Africa. So let's see what happens. And yeah, I'd love to know if our viewers are driving cheap Chinese models because they're affordable, or does it matter that this really can impact job creation and our own manufacturing industry? The number of the day, up to 50% tariffs are being contemplated.